Good afternoon and welcome to today's session on property matters, where we discuss issues relating to properties, and we also let you know ways you can solve all of these issues. As we always advise, always seek counsel from a qualified person, either a legal practitioner or estate practitioner who has the experience to help you resolve all of these issues as they come. We may not be able to deal with all of these issues or concerns you may have, but we are sure that the one we give to you on a daily basis and a weekly basis will go a long way to guide you in any decision you are making. So as we always do, this is Property Matters, brought to you by Ascent Realty as supported by Ascent Radio. I am Destiny Unoati Ijebo. So today we'll be looking at another interesting topic which we started the last week, and the topic again is common problems with property ownership in Nigeria. Common problems with property ownership in Nigeria. Last time we told you about some problems, and we also gave you ways in which you can solve all of these issues, and we told you that we'll be continuing from there today, and that's what we are going to do right now. So the first one we'll be looking at today, one of the issues that concerns property transaction, particularly ownership, is unknown easement. What is easement? As you understand, there are certain property where maybe you have a shared property, a particular portion of your land, maybe that easement that other persons will need to use in order to have access either to the major road or to other parts of the entire property. This is common where you have a good number of persons who share a particular plot of land or an acre, and they have decided to partition the land amongst other persons, particularly where the land was a family land and the property was developed in such a way that it was meant to be a family cycle, but due to some factors, they decided to go their separate ways, and the property eventually became properties of different persons. And once that is the case, there are still bound to be common easement, and it may just happen that it falls on the property which you have purchased. At the point of purchase, you may not be able to understand every part of the property or how it has been used over the years. Now, if you are unable to detect some of these things, particularly unknown easement at the point of purchase, you may have issues with persons who will have to use a particular portion of your property as access roads, and you will find out that persons, because they see it seems as if persons are invading their privacy. It's possible what you had in mind was, okay, when I purchase this property, I'm going to use this particular section for a particular thing, and after purchase you discover that that particular place you have earmarked for a particular project has been used for a long period of time as an easement for some other persons who also own property, either behind your property directly or some far back there, and they also need to use that particular place. You can't stop them because that place has been in use for a very long time, and they will have encourage you, okay, you also need to meet with the person that sold this property to you to find out whether truly this place has been an easement over a longer period of time. When you are unable to resolve all of this, you find out that you tend to have a strenuous relationship with other members of the community, because your intention was not to share that property with any other person for any reason, but this is something you have to endure at the end of the day. What can you do to solve all of this? At the point of purchasing a property, where you notice there's a particular thing in a particular spot in any part of the building, ask questions. What is this place used for? Or has it been used for anything at a particular point in time? Or if maybe you could also inspect the property. At the point of inspection, that is when you get to see all of these things. Some persons are in the habit of just purchasing a property as long as you see the price is good and the location seems good as well. It fits what they want to do. But it is when you go on to inspect this property that you get to discover that there are some easements in those areas. So what you have to do is to ensure that you inspect the property. When you inspect, you discover whether there is an easement or not, and if there is one, you ask questions. You definitely see persons either driving through that particular part or walking through there. Then you can ask, why are this person passing through here? Then they'll let you know, okay, this has been the practice over a long period of time, or this is why they have to use this portion of your land to access other parts of the community. And if they have explained that to you, you still want to go on with the purchase of the property, then you can go ahead. If you know it's something you cannot deal with, you can't afford to share a portion of your land with any other person, then you can make the decision to look for another property that will also suit the need which this earlier one you have found will also meet. That's a way you can prevent yourself from having that issue, which could have been a big one at the long run. Another one we'll also be looking at is undiscovered will. Persons have been encouraged to always get wills for their property. And what's the essence of will? The essence is to determine how your property is to be shared after you must have passed. Will is that document that speaks, the document that speaks from the grave. That's how we say it. A document that speaks after the demise of the maker. There are some circumstances where because the persons who are within the family circle at the point of the demise of the original property owner, we are unable to see or unable to find any document that shows how the property are to be distributed. And if this is the case, they proceed to distribute the property according to the native law and custom of that particular person where he's from. Let's say, for instance, the person who owns a particular property is from Lagos State. They are going to distribute that property according to the native law and custom of natives of Lagos State. And if the person also is from Edo State, they are going to do it in accordance with their native law and custom. But however, there are situations where you get to find out, maybe after distribution, it could be a few weeks after distribution of such estate of the original owner, after his demise, you discover that there is a valid will made by the original owner on how his estates are to be distributed amongst his children or any named beneficiary. And if this is the case, whereas the property had earlier been distributed according to native law and custom, and the persons who were distributed these properties have sold theirs. Let's say Mr. A, Mr. B, and Mr. C are the children of Mr. Okafor Ude. After his demise, they distributed his property according to the native law and custom of his own people. But after some time, it was discovered that Mr. Okafor made a valid will. And in that will, it was said that the property in Lagos should be given to Mr. Ude Jr., the property in Ekiti should be given to Mr. C, and so on and so forth. But during the distribution, according to native law and custom, the property that was given to Mr. C was actually meant to be given to Mr. A. And some of the properties that were given to Mr. A were meant for some charity organization. And if that is the case, it means they have to reverse whatever decision that had been made earlier on those property. And if it happened that Mr. C had already sold the property that was originally allocated to Mr. A in the will, that would cause a kind of trouble, because it means he had no right to actually deal with that particular property at the time he dealt with that property. So that's how undiscovered will affects the title that may be acquired, that you may have acquired as a purchaser. So you also need to go into details on how a property was acquired, especially when it was inherited from a family. If it has been a very long time, the will may be disregarded. Let's say they mutually agree, okay, since this is what our father had already agreed, but because we have done this already, let's just settle it on our own, and they mutually agree. That is the only way you can solve that particular problem. But if the parties involved, they are unable to agree, to mean we have to reverse the title, and you go after the person who you have purchased that particular property from. So you need to do proper due diligence to be sure that the property you have purchased is not subject to any will anywhere at any point in time. That's one way you can also save yourself of any troubles that comes with undiscovered will. Another one we'll have to look at is bankruptcy of the vendor. Now, if the person who has sold the property has declared bankruptcy at the time of making that sale, it means he has no capacity to sell that property. If he has declared bankruptcy, it means he has no property that can, he has a particular debt that he cannot offset at a particular point in time. He has told the creditors that I do not have any money anywhere, and I do not have any property to settle any debt. And because of that particular act, maybe he has given his property away to some other persons in settlement of debt, and he goes ahead to also sell that same property he had no authority to deal with again. It means therefore he lacked that capacity, and if he lacks the capacity to deal in that property, you cannot acquire a valid title. So what you can also do in this regard is to ensure that the person is free from every bankruptcy he has either voluntarily filed for, or the court has declared him either by the order of court, that is gotten by some other person, a third party. And if at any point in time he had declared bankruptcy before, he has filed for bankruptcy, you should also ensure that he has gotten his discharge certificate. He must have been duly discharged by the court. It's not enough for him to say, okay, I declared bankruptcy in the year 2012, but I have since found that I am no longer bankrupt, excuse me, I am able to deal with every transaction that I go into. I have paid all my debt. That may not be enough. Ask to see the certificates that he has been discharged, or another of the court that he has been discharged from that particular case that has declared him bankrupt earlier before now. If you are unable to do this, please do not go on with the deal. No matter how sweet the deal may seem like, just avoid it at all costs. Better deals will definitely come your way. You will not want to go into a legal battle that will last for 25 years and your money will be tied down somewhere. You are unable to reap your investment. The profit you would have made, everything will be lost, and you are going to invest your time also and retain the services of a lawyer who will be going through all the legal processes for you. You don't want that to be the case. So you must avoid any property that has any person who is bankrupt as a vendor, or maybe the person sold at a particular point in time to the current vendor. If he has said, if Mr. A approaches you to purchase his property and he tells you, I purchased this property from Mr. C, and you discover somewhere that Mr. C is bankrupt, you must ensure that at the time of the purchase from Mr. C by Mr. A, Mr. C was not bankrupt when that purchase was made, and he had the capacity to sell to Mr. A, whom now is putting this property forward for you to purchase. You must ensure you have all of that settled before you go on with the deal. No matter how long the deal may have been pending, as long as the person who has dealt with that property was bankrupt at the time and he had no capacity to deal with that property, it means therefore you have not acquired a valid title. So you must ensure that you help yourself by pulling out of the deal at any point in time before parting with your own money. Another one you can also look at, another issue that comes with property ownership in Nigeria, is disputed common boundary. How does this happen? You have situations, particularly in the villages, where there is no defined boundary. In the past, you used to have different trees and different other objects that may last for a very long time, that they place in different spots to demarcate their own boundary from the other, their own property from the other person. But with time, these things tend to either fade away or move away from the particular spot it was planted. Like in my place, one thing they used to determine where a boundary is, they plant different things, catch crops and all of that. One of them, they have plantain, some use palm trees and all of that. If it happens that you use plantain, for instance, to demarcate your property from the other person's own, it spreads with time. And if it has moved because of it spreading and all of that, it means the position which you originally planted that particular fruit must have moved. And if that is the case, it means therefore there is bound to be dispute. So you must ensure that whatever you are using to demarcate your property from the other person is something that remains firm. It doesn't move no matter how long it stays there. It will always be there for length of time. So when persons are unable to determine where their boundary really is, there is bound to be trouble. Let's say Mr. A sells a property to you, believing that his father had 1 acre of land, because he told him, I planted plantain and at the boundary between me and Mr. Okon, and because of that you have gone ahead to sell that property, and in the long run it is discovered that what your father actually owned is just 3 or 5 plots of land, not an acre as he had told you. Or it's even possible that the place that needs to be added to make up the acre is on the other end of the road and not Mr. D's parts of the land, and that may cause a very big trouble. So you must ensure that no boundary is disputed at the point of sale or purchase of any property. If there is disputed boundary, then there is bound to be trouble with any title you have acquired. So due diligence is another one that takes care of all of these challenges that comes with property ownership in Nigeria. Another one we'll quickly look at is trespass to land. Because persons have this urge to make as much money as possible from any land transaction. Let's say Mr. A has approached Mr. B, tells him, I want 2,000 square meters to build a factory. Mr. C has seen that, okay, this offer is a very good one. I have 1,900 square meter. I need to get extra 100 square meter to make it a round figure that Mr. A desires. He goes ahead to enter into another man's land that is nearby to him. His neighbor, because the neighbor is not always around, he doesn't come to that land often, he decides to carve it out to join his own, so as to ensure that he gets that exact number that his potential purchaser has requested. And if that's the case, it means he has trespassed into another person's land. Another one that can be responsible is improper survey. Some persons, because they want to get as much as they want, they may direct the surveyor to get into another person's property to carve it in such a way that what they want is achieved. But if you have purchased that property because of what you have been showed, another man who is the neighbor comes with his own survey that has been duly lodged with the relevant agency, and you discover that the portion of land that has been sold to you encroached on another person's land. You see that that is trespass, and whatever you have purchased that does not belong to the vendor, you are bound to lose it. So you must ensure that whatever survey plan you are given is accurate. One way you can do that is to go to the registry to confirm whether what you have been given is in line with what was presented for registration by the person who is selling this particular property to you. Another thing you can do is to ask questions. If there are persons who share common boundary who may not, it's possible the person that he has trespassed into his land is not always around, but there may be other persons who are living within the vicinity. You can ask them questions. Is this actually the size of this man's land that he's selling to me? All of this will save you of any troubles in the future. And if you also discover that there are some persons who are working on the nearby portion of land, you can also ask them questions. Where is the boundary between you and this other person? You don't need to ask as if you want to purchase a property, because you may not know whether they have colluded, but just ask as an independent person, and do not give them any representation that you are purchasing a property within that vicinity. That will help you to get accurate information concerning the property you are purchasing. In conclusion, you should always note that property transactions comes with troubles, but that should not deter you from going on to enter into any property transaction. Due diligence will always be one that will save you of any troubles that may come with that property transactions. When you do due diligence on any property, whatever troubles that will come with it will have been solved at the earliest possible time. If after you have received report from your solicitor whom you have retained, and he tells you these are the things that are likely to cause trouble in the near future on this property, and you decide to go on, it means you are ready for the troubles that may come, and you are very confident that you get the results which you desire. So if that is not the case, please always ensure you take the counsel of your solicitor and ensure only clean deeds are entered by you. This is how far we can go for today. Next time we'll continue discussions around property transactions. As we always do, property matters always. Till we come away again next week, follow us on all our social media platforms and turn on the notification bell to always get live updates as we come on. Thank you, and stay healthy and blessed.